Welcome back to part 2 of the Gilmore Girls attachment style breakdown. Last time we went into Lorelai, Luke, Christopher, Emily and Richard. If you haven't listened yet, go back because this really lies the foundation of what we're diving into today. It's all about Rory's world, her relationships, boyfriends. We're talking about her relationships and why she's attracted to certain type of people like Dean, Jess, Logan, and even Tristan. You can really see how attachment theory plays out through her dating life, the highs, the heartbreaks, and some of her repeating patterns. By the way, if you're new here, I'm Yula. I'm the Anxious to Secure coach, and welcome to the Anxious to Secure podcast. Just a little FYI, stick around until the end because I'm going to share one big tip for Rory to finally feel secure and have relationships that actually would work from my point of view and the main pattern I keep seeing in her love life. So, are you ready? Disclaimer, I'm not a therapist or doctor. This content is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It's not intended to diagnose, treat, or heal any mental health condition. If you're in an abusive relationship or dealing with severe mental health challenges, always seek professional advice. Let's talk about Rory, the main girl. Rory's attachment style, mainly anxious attached, with a little bit disorganized attachment edges. So, Rory, she grows up with Lorelai as her main person, right? She is the main attachment figure when she's growing up. Their bond is super close, almost more like best friends rather than a mother. So that's shown again and again in the show. This relationship is very warm and funny and very safe and comfortable, which is important if you have a mother or a friend, but also it's very much on Lorelai's terms. When Lorelai pushed hard about Yale, everything, this whole idea just to get away from anything related to Lorelai's parents. So Rory wouldn't become anything like Rory's grandparents. And also it creates a little bit of this pressure that we are in this together. And the vibe is very much like love and a little bit like on the smothering side, I would say. And Christopher, Rory's dad, is more on the opposite. He's very warm as well, but he isn't really there, is he? So Rory learns early that love can be here one moment, gives you very much closeness through Lorelai, so not as a motherly figure, more as a friendship. But then the dad is there sometimes and sometimes not, which creates more a little bit of this disorganized attachment style. And also reinforces her anxious attachment upbringing, because if you have an anxious attachment style, your beliefs are, you can get abandoned at any time. Not the way that Lorelai raised her, but through the role of, through more Christopher's role in there. And I think that's why Lorelai's tried to really overcompensate for everything, not just for Lorelai's parents through Emily and Richard, but also because Christopher, disappeared and doesn't really show up for her. So Rory really learns early on that love can be here one moment and kind of disappear a little bit on the other moment. And let's talk about school and how she's getting her self-worth from. She really built her whole identity around books, grades, her dream colleges. And when she's winning in school, she feels worthy, confident, everything is perfect, everything's working out. But when things are a little bit shaky in this area, she stumbles. But Rory also panics when love feels a little bit more permanent. For example, she pulls away at big milestones sometimes and runs back when this person steps away. And that's the push and pull pattern that looks more disorganized. So Rory chases unavailable partners like a lot. She was really drawn to Jess and especially drawn to Logan, who gave her really signs that he was not into her, that he was into other girls. But she was really drawn to this kind of, red flag behavior. I just can shake my head when I rewatch this whole thing. Yeah.
So if she really chases an unavailable partner, that is really much like, hey, anxiety, being attached to, this inconsistency pattern. Someone doesn't give you something or pulls away. Oh, then now I want it more. She panics a little bit when there's a little bit more commitment. For example, when Dean told her, I love you, she kind of froze up first, which is a little bit understandable as well if you consider how young she was and was her first relationship. And then she broke up, ran away, and never really addressed that. She didn't want to talk about it. Instead of addressing the situation or just expressing, hey, you know what, that was overwhelming, that was too much, she didn't know what to do. So I think in this way, it really shows a little bit more like that she is in this push and pull, that she is a little bit afraid of vulnerability. And that shows in that sense, again, that she has a more disorganized attachment style. So again, overall, she's more anxious attached and has slight disorganized attachment tendencies. So that's this push and pull. And with Logan, for example, she loved, by the way, I'm going to go into each boyfriend or each person more in depth in a minute. But right now it's more about Rory and how she interacts with those boyfriends in her dating scenes. So with Logan, for example, she loved the excitement and the thrill. But the second, I think there was an engagement happening and it really came up to like commitment and became maybe a permanent thing, she shut down and ended things as far as I remember, because I'm just rewatching the whole thing again, but I'm not there yet. But this is what I remember. So while she's still staying emotionally tangled in with him, right? So that's a huge red flag. So she really wants it, but she's a little bit afraid of it. Yeah. Another thing about Rory is she really idolizes her partners. A sign for being anxious, but also being disorganized attached. We kind of have the core belief that we're not really good enough, that other people are. So we put them on a pedestal, and that's why it's so easy to fall for people who are more like the red flag or don't fill your need and are not right for you, because you think, oh my God, either because they have this amazing status, or they have this charm, or they have something about them that you idolize. So you rather put yourself down and ignore red flags or breadcrumbs and other things that they are not acceptable, and you stay too long in relationships that actually hurt you. And you go after your feeling rather to what you actually see. So that's why, for example, she wouldn't listen to her mom when she really says, you know what, Jess is not good for you. Or I think even her mom was against Logan and all of this stuff. So for a mom, it's very clearly to see, hey, you know what, this person is not coming through, it's not good for you. But Rory is really much based on feelings and going after how she feels. Think about how often she saw Dean and Jess or Logan as the one who gets me, and it really ignores those red flags. And she even went into unavailable love, like, having something with Dean after he's been married to Lindsay. Just because, he was mine, he still is mine, to mark her territory. I don't know. And that's kind of the anxious push and pull between these, even when it's risky, messy, she's still going for it. And I remember when she talked about Jess and Dean at some point, she was saying something like, oh yeah, he's so unpredictable. I never know what I get with Jess. And then she's kind of, that she loves it. And there was this excitement in her voice. And that's actually not good. And later on, when she then was more interested in Dean again, she was like, actually, I really feel safe with him. He gives me this security. But I want to talk about Dean more later as well, because he's actually not securely attached. You think he gives you the security and everything, but he is not secure either. So don't fall for that. Anyway, so her Grace and Yale are really the anchor. So the moment she drops out, again, she spirals and has this breakdown. Her worth is so tied to achievement that her entire identity feels threatened when school really slips. That's important to realize. Ask yourself maybe, where are you tying your self-worth to? And how is this maybe not healthy? Now I want to address a little bit why she's not just anxious, not just a anxious attached person, what I hinted already towards, but I want to go a little bit more in detail. So someone who's fully anxiously attached clings no matter what. They don't usually break up first, but Rory does both. She clings and then she bolts. So Dean, Jess, and Logan, she kind of runs back sometimes, but then she also leaves right at the point of real closeness. So that's more signs of that she has this push and pull, typical for a disorganized attachment style. And compared to Lorelai, who we already talked about in the last episode, who is mostly disorganized attached, Lorelai has more the tendency to avoid problems, to talk around them, while Rory, she more attaches harder and faster, and she plans and invests and really needs to predict what's happening in future and has a structure. And she learned from Lorelai that closeness can feel also controlling. So she sometimes shuts down too. So I hope it makes sense what I explained. Maybe it's a little bit of a mess, but I'm really excited and passionate about Gilmore Girls. I was trying to explain it in a slow way, but I think I kind of bombarded you guys with this episode. So as a takeaway, I would say Rory wants closeness. She plans for it. She's loyal in relationships, but is not attracted to loyal guys. But she also fears, permanence and a little bit panics at milestones when it gets too serious. And she pulls back when love feels really too heavy. So that blends makes this, very anxious attached, but then has this push and pull of the disorganized attachment style. And the show gives really proof of that you are not just one anxious attachment style, that you're not just anxious attached, that you're not just disorganized attached, that you're not just securely attached, that it's all really, that usually just a blend of attachment styles. And also that you can shift towards something you can evolve over time, over years. Anyway, now let's talk about Dean, because for Rory, it seemed so obvious that he's the secure choice in the end, at least. She it seems she did this mistake, that she wasn't that into him anymore and was more into Jess. From the outside perspective, it might look like he's secure and the right choice, but for me, I always had this, there was something wrong with Dean. Not that he's boring, but okay, maybe as well. But I want to really say that Dean, in my point of view, has an anxious attachment style. His deep insecurity is literally driving me crazy. There's nothing wrong if you have an anxious attachment style. Let's talk about Dean. Dean grew up in a loving, I would say, but more traditional household. So he learned early that his value is more tied to his relationships. Compared to Rory, her worth is tied to achievement and accomplishments. So he craves closeness and reassurance. And when he feels ignored or replaced, he gets anxious and very insecure and very jealous as well. And that to a very unhealthy extent, which really pushes Rory away as well. He's not able to show it in a mature, healthy. So his self-esteem is often linked to how his partner reacts to him. So emotional affection, if he gets that, he's feeling worthy and good enough and strong and everything is great. But if he doesn't get it, he really doesn't feel good. So then Dean needs constant confirmation and needs to have physical closeness as well with Rory. And he overgives. He, gives her gifts and gestures and attention so he can really feel secure. And independence or emotional distance from Rory really triggers his jealousy and panic. When Rory, for example, didn't say I love you back the first time he said it, he got very insecure and panicked and kind of pushed her to say it as well. I think that was the thing that really, didn't trigger me, but that annoyed me. It's one thing if you're getting insecure and anxious and worried about if your partner doesn't say I love you back yet, but pushing the other person to say it back to you, especially in that moment, that's a very insecure behavior. And where Dean should have really looked at himself and saying, you know what, this is not just our first relationship and our first love, but let me give her a moment and let me just express my fears, maybe ask questions like, how do you feel in general about me? Do you think us going somewhere instead of like already pushing this onto someone. I feel like these words, if you say them, you also have to take some responsibility for it. Like, for example, in my relationships, I always said it when I kind of knew how my partner was feeling in the same or similar way. So I think just saying and springing this onto someone without really kind of having a sense for how they feel, but then it's on you to handle the situation or push someone to say it back. So that really shows how worried he is, how much he needs someone else to validate him. Otherwise, he feels like he is not lovable or not good enough. So Dean constantly seeks proof that Rory loves him and cares for him and that he's the only one for him. So he's really just scanning for just emotional safety outside of him instead of saying, I am already my own security. I love myself. I'm good enough. And if our relationship works out and Rory gives this back to me, that's amazing. That's exactly what I need and want. But if Rory doesn't say this back right now, or not ever, or maybe it takes more time, that's okay. I'm already secure with myself. That will create so much more security and make him much more like a more confident and magnetic person if you would have that strength. But if someone, reacts in that way, that would make me run away more, even if I was still anxiously attached. Confidence is one of the most attractive characteristics in yourself. And he also reacts quite strongly to Rory's independence. Like when he broke up with her, he felt overshadowed. Like, for example, his fear of abandonment showed up in a lot of areas. For example, it took him ages to actually break it off with Rory, even though it was so obvious it was not going to work anymore, that she wasn't really into it. But instead of just saying, you know what, I'm out of here, I'm not getting what I need from Rory, she is, I don't know if there's something going on between her and Jess. It doesn't matter. I don't feel good enough. I don't feel good in this relationship. Out. He should have already cut the cord ages ago, but he kept just pursuing this entire time. And then he kept chasing and chasing and chasing her, leaving her voice messages, trying all of this. So even Lorelai had to step in at some point and say, Dean, maybe if you slow down a little bit and don't message her and don't engage with her, maybe then she might reach out to you. That was like really, really great advice. And guess what? She didn't, Rory. But at least then he realized, okay, I think that's it. Because otherwise, how would you ever know, what's going on there? And in most of my clients' relationships, when someone stops this pursuer dynamic, often actually creates this more balanced relationship where the avoidant feels safe enough to then reach out to the anxious more as well. Because they then feel emotionally safe enough, they don't feel any trapped anymore. But if nothing changes, that's also a sign, that maybe it's not working anymore, or they're not into it, or maybe they're also not that person who just reaches out and engages. That could also be possible. But I think it was a really important step to realize, hey, you know what? Rory's out. Rory's not in it anymore. But yeah, otherwise, what else do we know from Dean? He does show his love through actions as well, like building her a car, for example. That is huge. Planning really thoughtful surprises, doing grand gestures more. It's a way of making her feel special, keeping her close. Again, he's very jealous. And this whole thing between him and Jess is not really helping him. It's not doing him a favor. I think it's important to rather express to Rory how he feels about it, if from a place of vulnerability and what he can accept and what not, but not as this jealous boyfriend who just starts fights and doesn't handle the situation very well. His reactions show he ties his worth really to being Rory's number one. And he clings when he feels very distant, but then withdraws and even sulks when he feels insecure. And those repeated breakups and reconciliations with Rory, this is classic. I want closeness. I want you, Rory. I want you in my life. I can't imagine a life without you. But his fear of just letting go, because you realize that he kind of lost her already, is too big. So his confidence rises and falls based on Rory's attention. If she's distant, he obsesses even more because of this dopamine hit. And if she's loving, he feels validated. So what he really needs to do is validate himself, give himself everything he's looking for in Rory, and don't tie his self-worth to Rory only, because that's really not healthy. So in short, I would say really Dean is very typical anxious attached. He craves closeness, panics around perceived abandonment, rejection, and over-invests emotionally in the relationship and takes everything very personal. And yeah, he very clings and reacts and tries to repair the situation. Also, yeah, classic signs. He doesn't pull out and break things off when it's really not working because of his fear of being abandoned. And he seeks security through reassurance and gifts and persistence. And his self-worth is really tied to his partner's actions. And he's also moving very fast in relationships, by the way, getting married fast and kids and all of this. So, drum roll, who's ready for Jess? He used to be my absolute favorite. Now I can, of course, see more red flags in him. I can see that he's more just showing up healthy and securely for Rory, but for no one else. But anyway, let's not jump to conclusions. Let's go step by step. Jess Mariano shows, I would say, more disorganized attachment patterns, leaning towards being avoided. So, he grew up with an absent mom, and meaning, inconsistent caregivers, and maybe a little bit more of a, sense of I'm not safe here. It was very unpredictable, maybe a little bit fearful. So this left him feeling very deeply insecure, not sure if he's going to be safe or not, being pushed around. So hyper aware of potential rejection and abandonment. And for a baby, that meant potential death. So he wants closeness, but he also fears it. He's not used to it, which creates this push and pull pattern in relationships. And his rebellious, aloof, sometimes angry exterior works as a protective shield against being vulnerable. When he, moves in with Luke, of course he feels, angry and upset and rebels against everything because he's just being kicked out and being abandoned by, I think, was it his mom, right? So of course I would just do the same thing. I'm not going to just happily move in with some stranger outfit, discarded, and feeling unworthy. And I feel like it's really, very sad and heartbreaking. I feel like it makes everything very understandable on how he reacts, especially over the first months. I feel like later on, because Luke has really trying everything to make it work and putting so much love and action into Jess, I feel like Jess could have then shown more of some signs of gratitude, which he does eventually, but it takes him a very long time. Again, I think understandable from his entire upbringing. So in his relationship with Rory, Jess struggles to stay consistently present. He opens up briefly when he feels safe, though, often through sharing books, something that can really relate to personal insights, but then also does withdraw whenever he feels emotionally, it's going to get too intense. So when it comes to really real vulnerability. So he idolizes Rory when she's available, but self-sabotages whenever closeness feels real. He also has a low self-esteem and low self-worth, which drives many of his behaviors and explains how he shows up in the show and how, towards everyone else. He thinks, I think he's very undeserving of love, and that's really reflects in the way he shows up for people. He probably thinks people will leave him, which makes sense, which reinforces a cycle of approach and withdrawal. So on screen, this shows clearly that he wants love, like through Rory, but then pushes away everyone else. When Rory gets too close as well, even Jess sometimes leaves town to protect himself, especially if there's something going on between Luke or any other trouble. And he also returns secretly, texting, calling, demonstrating longing while keeping a safe distance. And he's trying to get attention from Rory through doing weird things in the city to bring some chaos to the city. And after some fights, he needs his distance, so he runs away again, needs his space, and that's very typical disorganized attachment style as well. You know, they want consistency and love and closeness, but then as soon as something happens, they're off and they're gone. So it's very explosive. So over time, I would say Jess shows small signs of growth and more consistency. So he pursues a career, he writes a book and checks in on Rory occasionally, which really indicates that he does care and he's regulating his attachment a little bit more as an adult. He does really deeply care about Rory, and even towards his mom and Luke, he shows up more consistently. But he is overall still classic textbook disorganized attachment style. So he craves emotional connection, but also fears it. This shows this push and pull cycle. And again, he has learned to protect himself and to survive through rebellious behavior, sarcasm, secrecy, and just bonding through specific things with just specific people he really feels he can connect to, like just with Rory. So Tristan, shall we talk about Tristan? I think De Grey shows, I would say, more avoidant attachment tendency. Let's talk about him a little bit because it might be helpful to understand just an avoidant attachment style a little bit more. He's very charming and fun, but he keeps his emotional distance to people, especially when things get serious. Growing up, he didn't have a lot of experience that taught him how to handle closeness or vulnerability, so he learned to protect himself by staying a little detached, I would say. And I think his parents, I think they got through a divorce, but he was already a little bit older. Usually our attachment wounds are really impacted through the early ages, especially when we were a baby, until age 3, until age 7 and 12. These are really the huge years when our attachment is really built. So he's, out of that age, but I'm sure this doesn't help. I'm sure his parents are already showing signs of maybe conflict and all of these things. So he's loyal, and in the end, he is kind to people he does care about, I would say. He doesn't open up easily. He tends to disappear when, it gets too close. In relationships, Tristan flirts, he's again charming and on the surface level though. But when it comes to real commitment, when it comes to feelings, he pulls back. Very typical avoidant attachment style. So he's the kind of guy who makes you feel safe in small moments, but then later on he okay, now I'm more avoidant, avoiding emotions and more avoiding being vulnerable, commitment on all of these things. So that this I'm coming closer first and then later I'm gonna pull more and more away is definitely more showing signs that you're more avoidant attached. And that's the thing that someone who's anxious attached is kind of more drawn to this. And Rory wasn't attracted to that, definitely not. It was more like triggering her, I would say. She was really pissed off about him. But well, kind of, right? She was attracted to him somehow, I guess. And Rory really, craves consistency and reassurance and depth. So overall, long term, this would have not worked. So in short, Tristan is avoidant attached. He wants connection, but fears it being too close. And he keeps his emotional buffer, and that makes him exciting, but very frustrating, not just short term, especially long term. So for someone like Rory, who's more, anxious about love and wants closeness and consistency and predictability, they would have not been a great match.
Okay, I think I quickly have to add something here. This is me editing Eula. So on Tristan, I think, yes, he's avoidant attached. However, there are also some other signs, stealing her books and really much teasing Rory and calling her names, calling her Mary, and chasing her even harder the more Rory pulls away. That is not only just classic avoidant attachment behavior, that's very immature, also controlling, not healthy. That is testing her behavior, very immature, entitled. Some people online either are a huge fan of Tristan and say he has a lot of red flags, but he's cute and kind of still would go for him, which is very typical in the dating scene. Or it's really like, no, he's giving me the creeps, I don't even think he's cute, I would not go for him, and I really hate him. So it's just really this splitted, I hate him or I really love him, and I would really fall hard for him. If we're growing up on upbringing that is more like, growing up on conflict, on inconsistent love, then this is exactly what we're craving now, even though we know exactly they're not good for us. And I think some people are really falling for him because you can kind of see through the shell. You can understand why Tristan is this way when you see how his father talks to him after he's being pulled out of school. I think he's been kicked into like boarding school, just because, he did he's rebelling against, I guess, his family. He wants attention. As Rory said, he's very good and he could get great grades, but he's just doing this really just to get attention from his family and to get love through this. So it's just very sad, and I think that's why a lot of people actually are also on his side and rooting for him, because it's just they're feeling bad for him. Rory also, she's very much of a people pleaser. She really sees a person not just for who they are, but she really sees through them, through their upbringing, and really sees only the good in them, which can be a little bit of a dangerous game. Don't ever date a potential and hope they will change. Sometimes, okay, I can see, the good sides, but if you date someone, take them for who they are right now. I'm out and back to the podcast episode.
But yeah, I want to keep moving on from Tristan, and I want to move on to Logan. Logan. Let me know in the YouTube comments if you're a fan of Logan. Who is your favorite character or boyfriend for Rory, and why? So Logan Huntzberger, classic, I would say, avoidant attachment, a little bit fearful avoidance, so a little bit disorganized attachment style as well. He grew up in a high pressure, high expectation world shaped by wealth, expectations, social status, and his family focused on appearances, achievements over emotional connection, just like Lorelai's parents, Rory's grandparents, very, very similar. But apparently the Huntzbergers are much better, right? It's a different kind of money, as they're saying. So from a young age, he learned that closeness can feel very risky, emotional expression can be messy. This created this pattern of not talking about feelings, ignoring all of this stuff, and really focusing on career, on dating women who are already worth it and worthy of the Huntzberger name, of the family name, and no one is really good enough for them, right? So this created a huge amount of pressure and created this sense of you're never good enough, Logan, whatever you do, you can't even try, and no matter what he did, it will never really reach the level and expectations of what the family had in mind for him. So he really deflects when it comes to vulnerability, while also making him panic a little bit when, it really came to real intimacy. So in the relationship, Rory and Logan, they flirt and they're superficial more, I would say, very flirty. They're going out, partying a lot, drinking a lot. Logan's friends are very much around banter and very over the top everything. When Rory has this crisis about escaping Yale, Logan was not very much helpful. Also, going back to the beginning phase, Logan was not pursuing Rory. In fact, he was more playing with her. He was giving her any sign that he was not interested in her. When Rory's grandparents got married again, did the second wedding thing, Logan showed up, even though they were already dating, with another girl. And yes, I think it was his cousin, but he wanted to give the impression to Rory that, hey, you know what, I'm here with this girl. They were whispering to each other, laughing, and really created this toxic sense of, hey, you know what, we're laughing in front of you. I'm pretending I'm dating someone just to play with you, just to trick you, instead of showing consistently, hey, you know what, Rory, I like you, I want to date you, I want to pursue you. But no, he didn't. In the end, apparently he said that because he was like, oh yeah, I'm not good enough for you, Rory. I'm not the boyfriend kind of guy. First, Rory was pretending, you know what? I'm cool with this. I'm easygoing. I don't need a relationship. I'm cool with, dating around lots of people. So first, she really abandoned herself here. Very typical for someone who has an anxious attachment style, pretending to be the chill girl, going along with what the other partner wants from you just to not be abandoned, to be liked. But in the end, she figured out this is not for her. She just kind of set her boundary and say, you know what, we are done. And that pushed Logan to say, you know what, fine, we're going to try it. You're going to be my girlfriend now. And I think that is a red flag. Don't ever go into a relationship or dating by trying to think you can change someone. You can never really change someone long term. And maybe they're going to show different sides of them at the beginning of a relationship, but usually they don't change. So for anyone who's dating and you see already inconsistency, don't try to turn them around. If they really say, you know what, I can do this, I want to do this, okay, maybe give them a chance. But usually if someone already shows signs of something else and you're the one who's trying to tell them, hey, you know what, I want this, can you do this? They're not going to do it for you only. Anyway, also here with Logan, what we can see so many times for someone who is avoidant or disorganized attached, that they use charm and teasing and humor as an act, as like a shield, allowing him to get close to someone because they do want love and connection, without getting really fully too close and exposing themselves because emotions don't feel really safe. So despite avoiding deep emotional work, Logan shows really selective loyalty and generosity, revealing that when, he feels really safe, he can be dependable and connected, giving her his limo to her when she really needed to go home quickly, and because her mom really needed Rory in the moment, so he was really there for her in that moment. But at other times when it comes to emotions, he was like, he's not really opening up. So then I think that's not what's happening as far as I remember from watching it the first time, because I'm not there yet right now. So I think he breaks off the engagement, which then triggers Rory's panic and showing really his avoidant side more, even when he does care. So he flirts and disappears and prompting Rory to chase him more. Again, one is the anxious who pursues and chases, and one is then the avoidant who runs away more. So now let me share my advice, what I would share to Rory if I would be coaching her. The biggest advice that is really key here to find secure love. So Rory tends to be drawn to really these hot and cold patterns like Logan, Jess, and Dean. Yes, but Dean is more the anxious person. So I think Dean really is like a little bit of an exception. He was not healthy either though. So growing up with Lorelai and Christopher and a little bit with her grandparents, she has learned that love can feel amazing, but also it's a little bit unpredictable. So this mix left her with this anxious attachment and being more anxious in relationships as well, craving for closeness, but then sometimes panicking when it gets too real. So she ends up chasing people who are emotionally unavailable and even physically. Hint, hint, she's attached to married men, even though over time they give her less and less. So she is used to this a little bit unpredictable patterns from her past. So now she's drawn to a similar dynamic again. Even though it's unhealthy, our body doesn't care about what is healthy. We are used to something from the past. So the key shift for Rory, he is really, and anyone who's anxiously attached or has anxious tendencies, is to get secure in yourself first. When you feel secure on your own, you don't need someone else to prove your value. You stop chasing people who trigger your anxiety and start choosing partners who are actually reliable and loving and consistent. And when there is rupture in your relationships, or you don't get exactly the love language that is yours from them, and they just show you love in a different way, you still feel secure and lovable and good enough and not too much. Or if you overly tie your worth onto achievement or to the gym, this can be also very unhealthy, as we've seen in, Gilmore Girls, that if something happens to this, your entire self-worth is like ripped away and everything, it impacts everything, all areas of your life. So basically, Rory is really drawn to exciting, unpredictable types because that's what feels familiar from her upbringing. The way to really break the cycle is to build security inside yourself and inside Rory. So when you do this, you have relationships where you feel wanted and safe without constantly chasing someone who drifts away. And it creates a whole different dynamic. Like if you stop chasing, they are actually the ones who then might even come to you more because you created a whole different dynamic in your relationship. They can actually breathe as well. They feel more like they can pursue you now as well. And most importantly, if you are ending up actually in a toxic relationship, you are not having to stay just because out of your fear of leaving, because sometimes we're not even in love with a person. We are just often just in love with how they make us feel. And if you can create this feeling within yourself and extend your circle of friends, of connections, you only empower yourself. So if this sounds a little bit like you, if you're a little bit like Rory, or even have like a disorganized attachment style, but have already worked through the bigger traumas with a therapist or someone else, with a professional, and are ready now to transform your relationships, I'm your girl. You can work with me, no matter if you want to talk to me one-on-one in video calls or just want to have support on text, coaching support. Just email me or jump on a free call with me because I want to make sure we are aligned here. The goal is really not to change how your partner shows up in your relationships or the people you date. The goal is to really work on your attachment wounds, because we are feeling anxious because we focus on things that are outside of our control because of our upbringing. So we can only focus on what we can control and what we can do in the situation. And the goal is helping you become securely attached so you stop chasing emotional red flags, start feeling confident in yourself and your relationships, and watch this amazing ripple effect that it really creates, and not just for your relationships, in your friendships, in your work, careers, in your family life, in all areas of your life. Imagine how you would feel just becoming like 1% more secure every day. So the links are linked underneath the YouTube videos on the audio podcast. There are also free resources, guides, checklists, flowcharts, a quiz on really checking out if you have an anxious attachment style or are more disorganized attached. If this wasn't enough and it was a little bit confusing, no problem. Take the quiz. It's free. You will just get hooked up to my email address if you do the quiz, but you can unsubscribe anytime. It's absolutely no problem. I hope this was helpful for you. If you want me to go into any other episodes, characters, shows, let me know in the YouTube comments. I'm so happy that you're here and you're doing the work and that you've listened so far. Thank you so much for being here. Happy autumn. Remember, change in your relationship starts with you. Thought by thought, action by action, and now episode by episode. Lots of love, Yula. Bye-bye.